Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, author and executive coach at Inside Out Leadership, Ronni Hendel. Hey, what you drinking? Okay, this is going to be some shop talk. This is going to be some shop talk because I believe that I may be meeting for the first time a kindred spirit, because this is someone who is recommended by a really, really good friend of mine. And when I heard her talk about my friend, she was saying that she was a really, really good friend of hers. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So like-minded creatures are going to be coming together. She's a coach. She's into this leadership thing as much as I am. But she's holding down the West Coast. So coming all the way in from the Pacific Coast time, I would like to introduce to everybody Miss Ronni Hendel. How are you doing?
I'm doing well this afternoon. It's much earlier here, I think, than for you. So I got still check to my day ahead. So
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. You know, as we were saying, it's whiskey time somewhere. Well, hey, I can't wait to get into this conversation with you, because you have already demonstrated that you are prepared, because I've already asked. And as I said before, I can't do very many things that Oprah can do. But the one thing that she does is she tries not to have a conversation before the conversation. So the little bit of a conversation that we had, I asked this question, but we didn't officially get it on the air. So I have to wait to ask this question on the air to kick this off. And that is, so what you drinking?
so I poured myself some Macallan 15, which was a gift from a cousin, and I keep it for very special occasions. So
Okay, Macallan 15, because you're kind of a Scotch girl, right? So that's kind of your thing.
it's because of my dad, actually. When we were little, my father would order. He'd go to the bar at bar mitzvahs and order a scotch, and my sisters and I decided when we were getting a little older that we had to join him, and we all picked up the habit. So I think we all drink significantly more scotch than he ended up drinking, but that's okay.
Hey, that's good enough. That's good enough. Because Scotch is kind of a grown folks drink. I'm going to tell you, I don't drink a whole lot of Scotch, although I've been gifted a couple bottles. Actually, now that I think of it, all of my Scotch bottles have been gifted to me. But I'm gonna crack this one open. I think I may have had this one on the show before. This is Macallan 12 year, so I don't quite have the 15 year, but I'm gonna crack open this 12 year. Let's go ahead and get this and pour me some of this here. And yeah, okay, I got little peatiness. All right. So, hey, I'm going to ask you to lean in to some work here right off the bat. I'd love for you to share some of your background and the work that you are doing now. But I want you to back it up, though. Talk about the work that you were doing before this, because it's a bit of a leadership journey that a lot of the folks that I'm meeting seem to be on, right? I don't know that I meet a whole lot of people who say, you know, I've been a consultant all of my life. I've been a coach all of my life. Usually coaching and facilitation is something that they find passion for and therefore gravitate to. So talk a little bit about your background and what's gotten you into what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about leadership honestly since I was in high school. It's really true. I mean, I grew up outside of DC, paid attention to leaders. I think there's something about growing up in the DC area where the national news is the local news that kind of shapes you. And I was also very involved in this case in a Jewish youth group, and I took leadership roles and I trained leaders when I was a kid. And so I actually thought about leadership development when I was 16. I built leadership programs for kids and high school kids. I was in education, and but always focused on building leadership capacity, even at a very, very young age, which occasionally I remember that. Like I forget that that was my roots. And so when I actually started doing my first jobs were as a teacher and an educator. And then at a certain point, I transitioned into a corporate environment, into training and development. And I still remember the first time I was reading a Harvard Business Review, and my mother looked at me and said, "I don't know who you are." Like, this is not what. And then I actually did instructional design. And then what I began to think was, before I take off on a path that involves helping leaders be better or continue that path, I was doing leadership development, and I thought I'm missing a piece. I haven't really stepped into the shoes and lived the life of being a leader in a corporate setting. And until I do that, I'm not going to continue this facilitating the development of leaders. I need to feel it and experience it and be in it. So I spent about 15 years in a leadership role in a training and development organization, and really, really lived it. And then I think it was 15 years ago when I said, okay, now I'm ready. Now I can do this. I have the bona fides to do what I want to do, and the experience to have both studied it and been in the trenches.
Yeah, I'm curious. What are some of the things that you didn't appreciate being true until you stepped into this? You stepped into an actual leadership role, because a lot of times, a lot of my current peers come out of HR, and they don't necessarily have the general management background. I don't come out of HR. I'm a general manager wanting to be senior vice president of sales for a Fortune 500 company. And my journey here was actually on accident. I often like to say, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be leading a major organization somewhere. And the company asked me to take an 18-month developmental assignment for the central third of the United States. And that turned into the entire United States. That turned into some projects outside of the United States. That turned into being loaned as an asset for the company. And I looked around and I'd stayed in that 18-month developmental assignment for 8.5 years. So, and now this leadership space has kind of got me, right? I can't, I like to say that I believe I could make more money doing something else. I don't know that I can have as much fun. I don't know that I can have as much impact as I'm having now. But what were some of the things that you learned that you didn't quite appreciate until you were actually in the leadership seat?
Yeah, I think, and I talk about this a lot these days, I think I didn't appreciate that it's messy. There's always a mess. Like, it's just the next thing. The work is the mess. Like, your job is to navigate the mess. And, I think I learned a lot about people. I think I learned a lot about what it meant what was encouraging to people, what was discouraging to people, I learned a lot about politics. I had to change the way I spoke in order to be heard up. I actually think I was always pretty good at managing down. I think that's always been sort of the easier space for me. What I really had to learn in that role, and what I don't think I would have been able to coach as well on, is the managing up and way up, right? Being able to present myself in a way that was credible. And I think that was, for me, a lot of the learnings. I mean, I'm learning the word politics not in a negative way at all, but just the politics of leadership, that you have to be strategic. You have to think strategically. It's a chess game. I mean, there's a lot of things to be considerate and thoughtful about that I wouldn't have known had I not done that myself.
Yeah, I like it. You brought in a word that I'm actually thinking about a lot lately, and that's the word chess. Because I have always said, and I've heard this said tons of times, that chess is the perfect metaphor for life. I've always said that. I've always heard that. And then I saw a video where the guy was saying it's actually a terrible metaphor for life. And let me explain why. And he said, because in chess, you have the same number of pieces as your opponent. You can see what they're doing. You can see what they're doing. And anything that you want a piece on your board to do, that piece will do exactly. It will go exactly where you put it, and it will do exactly what it is designed to do because of its shape, it's because of its position as a piece. In real life, none of that's true. You don't get to see what the other side is thinking. You don't get to have time to think about what your next move is going to be. And just because you suggest that someone goes to this space doesn't mean that they're actually going to do it, nor are they going to perform the way that they were supposed to perform based upon the job description. And based upon that video, I'm like, you know what? Chess is a terrible metaphor for life. What's your reaction to that?
No, I actually think that's right. I know, and I don't think I use it as a metaphor for life, just sort of the more being strategic, just like it's multiple moves. You can't achieve thing in the first move out. You have to think steps ahead. And, that was something I really learned in managing up. But you're right. It's not my favorite book of the last few years by far is called, it's new. It came out late last year. It's called Meditation for Mortals. Meditation
Okay.
for Mortals. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's fabulous by Oliver Berkman. One of his metaphors that he uses is we think we're driving a big old yacht, but we're actually on a kayak. And I just think, it's we're on this kayak ride, and it's not going to go exactly where we think, and we're not controlling it, and we can guide and steer, but we are not really in control of it.
I love that, and I'm gonna have to look for that book. I have not heard of it, but it sounds fascinating. It reminds me of this quote that I keep on my desk. It's one of those little wooden plaques that when I don't know, vacationing in Costa Rica or somewhere, walked by this window, this shop window where they were selling overpriced tchotchkes, right? But I walked by and I saw this little sign in the window, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. And the sign says, "We can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf." We can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf. And your story just kind of brings that to mind. And this sounds like a great opportunity for me to ask what I ask all of my guests, and that is to help me think through and define the metaphor for the name of the show, whiskey, jazz, and leadership. So for me, love whiskey personally, love jazz music personally. I'm a leadership dude. Actually trademarked the personal branding, the leadership strategist. That's how pathetic I am for this leadership stuff. But the metaphors is what I really like to get from my guests. So the metaphor of whiskey, doing what you enjoy with the folks you enjoy it with, that's what it means to me. So for me, the whiskey is a social drink. It's almost pathetic to drink whiskey by yourself. So you gotta have people to enjoy it with. Jazz for me is the improvisation of how do you deal with what's in the room? How do you play off of what's in the room? How do you use your skill, use your training to get to where you need to go, even when there's no sheet music in front of you, or that sheet music it's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work right now for this situation. I got to come up with something else, and I got to come up with something else in like 5 minutes, right? And then for me, leadership is an action word. We can talk about theory. We can talk about this latest article. We can read books. Heck, I'm writing a book right now. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do? And what's the action that's going to come out of all of this theory? And until someone takes an action, then we're just having a conversation. So that's what the metaphor means to me. My audience is tired of hearing that. What they really want to know is, what does that metaphor resonate with you, and if so, how?
when I was thinking about it, because I implicitly love the title, and then like, why is it so appealing? And I think for me, when I think whiskey, I think of just sit like that. It's the end of the day, and I am ready to just sit and slow down and savor the moment. And I think it's that savoring part that came more to me rather than yeah. And I actually am pretty okay doing that on the couch by myself because I just can quiet myself down and I'm actually not a big social drinker, but I really enjoy a little scotch at the end of the day and just like me quieting me down. At the beginning of the day, it's meditation. At the end of the day, it's whiskey. I mean, it's just like,
I see the connection. I can see it. I can see it.
and then like I actually jazz was the same for me. It's really the improv, the flow, the fluidity, because I think that is essential to I don't know, just our life, right? Like being willing to roll with it, to improvise. I love improv. Really, really enjoy improv. I don't do improv, but I really enjoy watching improv. And then I think when I think more about I was just with a client just now, and I was just talking. I kind of was waxing elegant. I was doing this last week with a group as well. I think leadership is noble. If we can create spaces, if a leader can create a space where people come to work and they feel connected, they feel included, they feel appreciated, they feel like there's some sort of sanity and stability, that's just huge. So for me right now, I'm really helping leaders, trying to help leaders see the power of their role in creating these spaces where people can thrive in a time when it's hard to thrive.
It really is, and you are reminding me of some advice I got from one of my longtime mentors. I think he's been more of a mental mentor than the time that I actually reported to him. I think I really only reported to him for maybe 3 years, but he's been in my mind for probably the past 20 years. And that's Mr. Stan Hutchin. And Stan, whenever you were a brand new manager on his team, he would go through this thing about asking you, do you know what business you're in? And, at the time I was with the Coca-Cola company. And so, new manager, you go through this whole conversation about, I'm in the beverage industry. No, Galen, that's not the business you're in. Do you know what business you're in? And well, Stan, you've got a reputation for delivering your business plan to the company for the past 30 years. I'm in the business of delivering my plan. No, Galen, that's not the business you're in. Do you know the business that you're in? Well, obviously, Stan, I don't know the business that I'm in. Please enlighten me. And then he'd explain, Galen, your people are in the business of making the brand important to their clients. Your people are in the business of delivering the business plan commitment to the organization. You are in the business of making their dreams possible. And I've always thought about that whenever I would have a leadership conversation with new leaders, because typically once you're in that seat for a while, you figure this out. But new leaders, when they are used to being top performers, they're used to doing a thing really, really well, and now they're managing a P&L, and they're managing people, and they're still trying to do that thing really, really well. What's been your journey with helping people transition from being a really, really good doer, maybe even a good manager, to being a good leader?
It's a funny moment to ask because I literally, right before we started talking, I had a client who I've been working with I've got a few clients I've been working with one-on-one for almost a decade. Not a lot, but a few. And this one, who is a very significant leader in a pretty well-known organization, was saying something to me about days when wanting to get back to being able, like wanting to make sure that his job still involves doing things. And I said, I need to play back to you what you just said. Because after all these years, you're still saying that only when you're getting stuff technically done, you're still doing something. And he just started to laugh. He said, I did say that, didn't I? So I don't think it's an easy transition. Like even for somebody who's been doing it for so long and knows in his soul, he knows that's not true. I think there's still something about having this tangible output of this thing that I did, or I wrote this, or I made this spreadsheet. And he's a brilliant operations person, brilliant. Still minimizing the work that isn't making something. Mm. And so I don't think it's a short journey. And when I began working as a coach, it was the main thing I took on because I thought I was really good at that transition. And that was, I work now with more senior people as well, but or even primarily. But when I started, that was the transition I wanted. I wanted to help people. It's an identity shift.
Yeah.
It's really a very essential shift in understanding of what my contribution is. And valuing that my contribution is enabling someone else to do something. It's not doing it myself. And it's a big shift. And it was so fascinating to me that remnants of that shift can exist, probably 30 years after stepping into your first leadership role.
Yeah. Do you get the sense that organizations understand that organizations understand what you just described? I know it's challenging, just as you just described. It's challenging for leaders to remember that from time to time because, our ego gets involved, right? I want to show these young whippersnappers how it's really done, and I can still do it, right? I can still lace up the high tops and go get it done, right? We want to show that every once in a while. But do you think organizations understand the role of leadership for their people in their organizations?
I think the ones that do tend to do better. Maybe I still see it through rose-colored glasses, but I think there are certain organizations, Microsoft is one of them, that actually is really good at this. And I worked with a couple of people there at one point. I thought, wow, they get this. And, some smaller organizations do. I don't think most. I mean, you see it. The middle management layer is the first to go, and people are for good reasons sometimes afraid to give up the doing because they're afraid they will become expendable. If I give away all of my work and only manage people's work, what are they going to think I do all day?
Yeah. Yeah. How can I tangibly demonstrate my value to the organization if all I'm doing is inspiring people?
Right. And I think there are organizations that have done that. There are very few jobs these days that I think are pure leadership. I don't think it's maybe because it's not so valued, or maybe just because it's the nature of work right now.
Yo, that was just part 1. Subscribe now so you get part 2 as soon as it is released. Or better, become a VIP so you don't have to wait. Cheers.